Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to If No, what is the name of my podcast? That's not a podcast. It is called I Do Not Have a Podcast. I don't have a podcast. But if I did, this is what we'll talk about. This is what we would talk about. Today, on this beautiful Friday, we would talk about healthy sexuality with the fabulous Miss Wax Kitchens
Mhm.
herself. And she's in the chat, Miss Wax Kitchens herself, Nikki Curry. I'm going to see if we can get this together. What happens? Let's see what happens. I am still transitioning into this thing, you guys. So work with me here. It worked! It worked, and it worked the first time. And
Yes,
actually see you.
I can see you as
Normally,
well.
normally I cannot see the person that I'm talking to.
Mhm.
I'm just literally talking to a blank screen, but I can see you today. That means it's going to be a good
Mhm.
conversation. It's going to be a
Mhm.
good conversation. I am so excited. Look, I've been telling everyone that I know that I'm talking to Nikki Curry today. I am talking to Nikki Curry today. I'm so excited. I met Nikki, I want to say in October of last year.
Mhm.
Maybe before that, maybe like in the summertime, just kind of met you kind of out to dinner with girlfriends.
Mhm.
And then we got to spend a little bit more time in October because I went to a workshop, a retreat that you hosted a workshop at.
Yes.
And let me show everyone my creation.
Yes, where is she? Oh, yes. Yes, your Bellas. You have your
These are my
belladonnas.
bellas. These are my bellas.
Yes.
Let's start with that. And of course, I have
Mm.
a
Yes,
beautiful, beautiful water mint and eucalyptus candle, courtesy of Miss Wax Kitchens.
yes,
Thank you. Somebody said it's beautiful. It is
it is.
absolutely beautiful. Do you mind just sharing a little bit about these Bellas, what they
Sure.
represent, and the process that we went through in creating them?
Oh,
My
yes,
little
yes. So
thing came off. I have to glue it back on.
you got to put it back on. So Bellas are a line of actual figurines and candles through my actual candle organization, Wax Kitchen Candles. And so Belladonna means beautiful woman in Italian, and it really celebrates the female form in all of our shapes. Because I know you and the other participants got Bellas that represents you.
Yeah,
So what your body type looks like, what you feel like. Yeah, you have the one with the
she
ropes.
got a little dump
Um,
too.
yes, right. So no matter what we look like as women, no matter what your story looks like, the Bella is a representation of you. And sometimes we don't take the time to really see ourselves. And this was my way of being able to share with other women in this journey of life what, womanhood could look like. And
Yeah,
regardless of where you've been with that, we did art with the Bella. And so you really got a chance to adorn your Bella,
yeah,
and it's an adornment to yourself. So it's really just an ode and an honor to celebrate women, um, of all shapes, all sizes, large, small, medium, and tall, and just really just to celebrate what that feels like.
yeah. That was so good. It was so powerful because you may or may not know this. I think you do, but I've been through my own and am still going through my own physical health journey
Yeah,
in regards to body image and losing weight, gaining weight, pregnancy weight, like all
all
of
of it.
it. And
Yep.
so these Bellas, like being able to see a Bella with my shape, with the
Hmm.
curves and the dump, and
The hips
even
and the
I
breast.
like this one. Yeah, it was amazing and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful experience to decorate her, to celebrate
Hmm.
body shapes and body images that are not traditionally accepted in
Yes.
society. So that was amazing to me. And at the end of it, you had us write a letter to our inner Bella. Tell
Yes.
us about that part of it.
So
It was
the inner
beautiful
Bella,
as well.
yes, the inner Bella is that self-love letter so that when, we have just those moments in life where it just feels like life is lifing
Hmm.
and it's a little too hard, it was a prompted questions and questions to yourself that while you're sitting in this moment of celebratory, of awareness of yourself, self-love,
Mhm.
you can go back to it. So that way, when life is lifing, go
Mhm.
back to your love letter because that's you. And
Yeah.
so, really, again, it's something that was very personal and very much what each woman needs to hear sometimes for themselves, because sometimes we don't hear it from everyone else.
Yeah.
So, if you can be able to celebrate that and do that within yourself, then it's something that it's just a beautiful
It
experience.
is. It absolutely is. So listen, listen, if you guys are here and you want a activity that it's not really a traditional activity
No.
because we don't genuinely talk about like body image and celebrating ourselves and
Hmm.
womanhood and femininity. Like we don't talk a lot about that, especially in our community. And
Yeah.
so to go to a retreat and have that as an activity, it shifted some things in my life. And so I just want to invite anyone that might be listening to this and catching the replay, make sure that you go to Wax Kitchen's Candles and book a retreat experience for your
Yeah.
girl. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I enjoy a lot and learn a lot with participants. So yeah.
yeah, awesome. But that's not all you do.
No.
Tell us the other part of Nikki in terms of what she does and who you are as a person.
Oh, well, sure. So I am also a wellness practitioner and a professional organizing coach. So
Mm,
that looks a lot different from, just traditional organizing, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But then also too, I am a sexual health educator
mm,
and I am finishing my degree. I'm in the last stages of finishing my degree in
yeah,
clinical mental health counseling. So really in sex therapy.
mhm,
So really, that'll be the specialty. But yeah, I work a lot in coaching now, in the wellness spaces, health and wellness spaces, and that looks very different um, as we go through life and as things shift around us. What does that mean? Because what might have worked a year ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 minutes ago may not be
2 minutes
working for
ago. Yeah,
may not be working for you now.
yeah,
So yeah.
that's good. Well, speak to that because, a lot of the women that follow me are mid-age
Hmm.
group, and I was talking to you about earlier. I even have some like adolescents, young adults that
Hmm.
follow me now, and so kind of speak to what do you consider as healthy sexuality at all age groups, at all age ranges, and developmental stages.
Well, for starters, healthy sex is staying healthy sex. Like, let's say the word. You have to become very comfortable with the language. And if that hasn't been something that's been a part of a person's journey, then it's hard to really kind of wrap your minds around what healthy sex look like. So let's just start by saying sex. And
Sex.
my first sex, like say it. It's a part of our life, sex.
Yeah.
Whether you want more of it, you're having
Mhm.
great sex, or you're
Yeah.
not, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But really, I like to really start the conversation with when you hear the word sex, what comes to mind?
Yeah.
And what does that mean to a person? And then for, like you said, even those that follow you or that even follow me, is understanding that sex evolves in your life.
Yeah.
So it's not just this one time of I've been doing it this way,
Mhm.
but it changes, you
Mhm.
know? And so we have to really own
Yeah.
that, hey, what comes to mind for me when I think of what sex is? And
Mhm.
then how has sex evolved
Mhm.
instead of changed? How has it evolved
Yeah.
as we age?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. I want to start with that part of it, the stigma part of it,
Ooh.
because, to be honest with you, I got nervous even putting up the flyer saying that I'm going to be talking to you about sex. Like it made me nervous, and it's so interesting. Last week
Yeah.
I talked to evangelist Jennifer Milton about her journey in spirituality and her faith and her religion, and that made me nervous too. And it's so
Hmm.
interesting that we have like these hot button topics that are like kind of taboo to openly
Hmm.
discuss. However, what I
Hmm.
know and probably what you know is that it's the most kind of impactful things in our life,
Hmm.
like sexuality. It's so impactful. And although people would never hit like or
Yeah.
acknowledge that they're watching this, they are
Oh,
definitely are going to catch
people
the
watching it all the
replay,
time.
ask the
People watching it all the
questions.
time.
But why is it that we have such a stigma around sexuality? Like what is that about?
Well, even let's start first of just saying, within our own communities, the Black and Brown communities, you have to take in the historical context that, our bodies were not always ours. We
Mhm.
weren't looked at as the standard of beauty, that, there is something that was maladaptive or disfigured or abnormal about what we look like and how we see ourselves. So
Mhm.
you got to take that into context, right? Our parents, I'm, in my mid 40s and I'm enjoying that, but my parents didn't talk about sex.
Mhm.
A lot of us did not get that sex talk or didn't get the girlfriends. We kind of hear it from the sideline, but they weren't really having the conversations about it. And so sex was one of those things that it's not talked about outside of the bedroom.
Yeah.
It's not talked outside of monogamous or hetero relationships. So
Mhm.
even just saying the fluidity of what that looks like, whether you identify one way or the other and you enjoy sex with women or men or both, or you're pansexual, or you're in a poly kind of situation,
Mhm.
it's not talked about.
Yeah.
So it makes us feel uncomfortable in these spaces of like, hey, I want to explore
Yeah.
and I don't know how to because I'm not comfortable with maybe the things that were presented to me or what my definition is of sex.
Yeah.
So, in that, I like to work with clients and say, okay, well, now that we've said the word and we've talked about it, what is sensuality? Which is
Mhm.
completely different from sex.
Completely different.
Sex can
Yeah.
mean one thing, and it doesn't mean that it's just the physical nature of it. But then what does my sensuality look like?
Yeah.
And then how do I bring those two together?
Yeah. What is sensuality? I am on a sensuality journey. So talk to the
Okay.
people and me.
Okay.
What do you describe as sensuality?
So for me, and again, I think sensuality is something that one person, each individual has to own for
Mhm.
themselves and what that looks like. But sensual, if you just break down the word, is sensual, it's a part of your senses, right? We associate it with sex,
Mhm.
the physicality, the intercourse, the outer course, or whatever physical parts that sex may bring. But sensuality, for me, it's always bringing awareness to your senses.
Yeah.
So think of
Yeah.
sight. When you think of sight, some people watch porn. They
Yeah.
like to be watched, voyeurism. When you hear things, so what does that sound like for you? Do you like the sound of moaning? Do you like to be, whatever, what is sensual?
Yeah.
So thinking of just bringing the awareness of your
Yeah.
senses and that heightened sense. When you focus on, let's just say for the candle experience, that heightened sense of smell,
Yeah.
where does it take you? What does it
Mhm.
remind you of? How
Mhm.
does it make you feel? So that's what sensuality can really be for an individual. And again, that changes over time. What I like today, I don't like it anymore. That doesn't do it for me. I
Yeah.
need you to go a little bit harder or slower or
Yeah. Yeah.
faster. And that's even with yourself.
Yeah.
So sensuality is also self-reflected.
Yeah.
Sexuality can be very self-reflected. It's not something that it's always with a partner.
Mhm.
So keep that in mind as well. As sometimes we think, oh, I'm not having sex. Well, are you not doing it with yourself? If that's what the goal
Yeah.
is. Um,
And so you
so
can, and so what I think I hear you saying is that we can create these sensual experiences
oh
with
yeah.
ourselves and for ourselves.
Yes.
I talk a lot about like mindful eating, and one of the principles of mindful eating is really experiencing your
Mhm.
food. And so I kind of just create these sensual experiences even with my food. So
Yes.
meaning, how does this food smell? What does it taste
Mhm.
like? Like what seasonings are there? How does it look? What am I
Mhm.
noticing? That is sensuality to me, just
Yes.
in the range of just eating food. So sensuality can really touch every area of our
Oh yeah.
lives.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Most definitely. It's again, these are moments that anyone can create, whether they're a man or a woman. And at any age, as we age, that changes for us. So again, really reframing the definition of, what you know or what you thought that you know to something else to have more meaning in your life now.
yeah. What about the people that have had those negative framing of sexuality,
Mhm.
you know, or negative experiences with sexuality that creates kind of barriers to them experiencing healthy sexuality or healthy sensuality in the present moment? Can you speak to those people?
So yeah, so for those that, for one, I say definitely seek help, seek guidance, whether that's, someone that is in a mental health space, or in a space of what you're needing. So I say first seek the guidance. If it's medical, please seek out that health guidance for yourself to make sure you're physically well, and you can begin on that healing journey. And I say, when you seek the guidance for that, again, it's not going to be an easy road. Healing is never easy. If it was easy, we all would be very healed and very evolved, but it's never easy. And so I say, for those that have experienced any type of trauma or any type of negative connotations to what that looks like for them, whether they've experienced that through words and acts, um, seek the guidance, but then also there's going to be where you're going to do a lot of self-reflection. And there's going to be where, you have to listen to, does this define me in the space that I am? And you
Yeah.
can do that with the support that you're needing.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes we want to take and look at it like I need spiritual support in
Mhm.
our communities.
Mhm.
And that may not always be the case. That's not a negative thing, but I say, what are you wanting to gain from this? Whether it's I want to have better sex, or I want to have relationships, or I want intimacy.
Mhm.
Intimacy, if you think of breaking it
Mhm.
down phonetically, it's into me, I
Yeah.
see. So intimacy, if that's something that's the goal, then I say make sure that you have the right support so that you can do that. And it's not going to be a one and done process,
Mhm.
so that you can become more sexual if that's what your goal is, so that you can experience more sensuality.
Mhm.
I say, really take the time and give yourself time.
Yeah.
A lot of times we think that we're in a culture of, it's microwaved, it's rushed, but
Yeah.
really take the time that you need so that you can go on that healing journey. And that might be, hey, I need therapy and I need support spiritually, and I need a community of others around me
Mhm.
to really go through this so that I can be better.
Yeah.
So, and it can be very, very hard when you're living in that moment. So I say the first thing is seek the support. And if you don't know where to go for the support, just start with, your health professionals. If you have a doctor, a physician, go to them
Yeah.
and try to seek out that professional help, because a lot of times, us as professionals, you included, we have the training, the background to really support individuals and help them with additional resources. Um, so I say do that first instead of you know, turning to other avenues that wouldn't be as fruitful for you.
That's good. I work with people that have experienced sexual trauma. I work with people that have been and are sex workers that are
Mhm.
struggling in their body, struggling with reclaiming their body and owning their sexuality. And some of the work that we have to sometimes do with those individuals that come into counseling is really kind of beginning to see your body, our bodies, as more than just an object. Like you
Mhm.
mentioned earlier about how historically, for Black Americans, Black African Americans, our bodies historically were not ours. They were objectified. They were used by others for a particular purpose. And so it's like this externalizing mindset of, oh, I cannot see myself other than just through an object of other people's pleasure or
Mhm.
use or whatever their purpose is. How do you reclaim that? How do you believe that you can reclaim that? People can reclaim that for themselves.
That is again, being able to become more sexually and sensually connected to
Yeah. Yeah.
yourself. People can start to see outside of that lens.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
lens that might be that you thought was created, that may be a perspective, but is that truly your perspective? Is that truly your identity? Regardless of whatever field. So even for individuals that might be sex workers, is this who you are?
Hmm.
Because you can be very multifaceted and have
Yeah.
other talents and other skills that you bring forth. We're all very unique in who we are. And one story and one narrative should not be the end all of that. So I say, definitely let's start with the foundational kind of work, getting help to reframe what that mindset is. And some again, you can't do it by
Yeah.
yourself. You shouldn't do it by
Yeah.
yourself. So, I think that's great that you have individuals that come to you in counseling and
Yeah.
really seek support.
Yeah. Some of the things, like practical things that we do in therapy, is do things that are not objectifying you. So, for
Hmm.
example, if you have always danced for the pleasure of others, why not dance just to dance?
Hmm.
Like, why not get in activities? I do a lot of activities. If you're following my personal page, I'm like, you
Yeah.
see me doing aerial arts, right?
Yes.
I'm pulling up and being strong and being a badass. None of that has to do with sex, but it's showing my body to me in a different light. And
Yeah.
I'm seeing my body doing different things that are powerful. And so we have people just dance.
Mhm.
Dance in your room, dance in public, take a yoga class, like do all those things with your body to show you that your body is capable of so much more than other people's pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
And so that begins to unlock things for a lot of my clients that are sex workers or have experienced sexual trauma.
Oh, yeah. And I think that, even you just speaking on the word pleasure,
Yeah.
sex is
Yeah.
pleasurable. It's not just for the sex is pleasurable. And so
Hmm.
when we've had, moments that maybe that was stripped of us in a different time where you didn't have the voice to say, no and clearly mean no, that consent, that taking that back of ownership is I'm going to own my pleasure.
Yeah.
So it's really, again, it's a reframing, a reshifting. And I even like to tell young people, those that are starting their sexual journey and whatever, because even young people, they do start it early. And I think as parents, if you have, parents, guardians, aunties, uncles, whomever, in a young person's life is have open conversations,
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to talk about it, again, go back to what does it mean to
Yeah.
me and
Yeah.
putting that ownership on me because maybe
Mhm.
I have feelings that now I'm not able to help you in a healthy way or guide you in a healthy,
Yeah.
way.
Tell us, the audience, though, and me, because I have a almost 14-year-old, so these
Mhm.
conversations are here. They are
Yes,
here.
they are
What are the
there.
words? What are the words that we need to say to the kids that are
Well,
coming into their sexuality? And it's so interesting because I do have an almost 14-year-old, but I also have a 4-year-old, and she is in her exploratory phase as
yeah.
well. And so it doesn't just start when they get older. These conversations, as you might are about to say, they start so much earlier. But go ahead. I
They
want to give you
do.
the
They
floor.
start very early. And I think just being very open and using correct terminology.
Yeah.
So use what the body parts are,
Yeah.
use the correct words for, instead of saying a dick, say a
Yes.
penis. Call it what
Yes.
it is for individuals and bodies that have penises, a vulva. Say that, say the correct terminology, as you're talking
Hmm.
as early as possible so that way again they are understanding what their body is and what their body should do.
Hmm.
And so I think again when we as adults don't always have that narrative, seek
Hmm.
support
Yeah.
from someone like myself, a health, a sex educator, a counselor that is trained in sexuality, um, seek the guidance of health professionals so that way you can really say, you know what, I need more terms. I'm not
Hmm.
familiar with
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
so that you can
Yeah.
use them
Yeah.
correctly. So using correct terms, let's start there.
Yeah.
It's not a hoo-ha or something
I
else.
like that. And listen, that's so important because I'm also, I'm a trauma therapist and I worked with kids. And sometimes
Yeah.
when they're using hoo-ha and it goes into the report and the person that's reading it is like, what's a hoo-ha, right?
Hmm.
And so you have to use correct languages. So in the case that something happens, they are very clear on
Mm,
what happened, how
okay.
it happened, when it happened, with correct language. And that makes such a
Hmm.
difference if things were to happen.
Yes.
But also, like, even with my 4-year old and the older one, like, what is consent? You talked
Yeah.
about consent earlier. So healthy sexuality, there is a level of, okay, I have to give consent in order for this to be healthy. What does consent look like?
Yeah.
What do boundaries around sexuality in my body look
Yeah.
like?
Yeah, and so I think, definitely you want to be able to say yes is a yes,
Yeah,
and clearly it's a yes, and a no is a no. A
yeah,
no is not maybe, a no is not, I'm thinking about it. No means no.
hmm,
And guess what? At any point in time, your consent can change. I
yeah,
think that's something we don't see it for
yeah,
ourselves
yeah,
is that, hey, I started this, but now maybe I feel uncomfortable in this moment.
hmm,
And no clearly means no.
yeah,
So
that's good.
that is what consent is that I've articulated it, not just with my eyes or with my actions and my body, but I've clearly said to you, yes,
Yeah,
I want to have what X, Y, and Z.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
I am saying yes to the act of whatever that act is with my mouth, not just with my body and my language, because our body language can
yeah.
change. It can shift,
Yeah.
you
So
know?
being aware of
It's
body language and how that
like,
is experienced
yes.
by others, right? And then also, this is so good. And this kind of goes into the topic that we were just talking about, but having the assertiveness to
Mm,
say and kind of believing that you're worthy enough to decline that consent at any moment,
mm,
right? And
mm,
knowing what you have to say is important and people need to hear it. Sometimes, um, especially older women, like, there's this pressure to have sex when you're
mm,
dating, especially. And because of that pressure to have sex, especially when you're dating, when you're, I don't want to limit this to when you're on the college campus, but even
mhm,
grown women, when we're dating, there is the pressure
mhm,
to have sex. And with that pressure comes the, I can't say no,
mm,
especially he bought me dinner or she bought me dinner. Like, there's no gender. They bought me dinner. They spent all of this time. The expectation is so high, and you have to really kind of connect with yourself in order to be able to say, but I'm worthy enough to still say no when I
mhm.
desire to. That's what healthy sexuality looks like, in my
Oh
opinion.
yeah, you're absolutely correct that at the end of the day, no means no. And I've articulated no, I don't want to participate in this act, or no, I don't want you kissing me there or touching me there. And you have to say that. And so I think sometimes, like you said, the expectation, that feeling of more of a rejection sometimes we go through is I don't want to be rejected because I'm not dating often.
Yeah,
And this person has shown interest in me. So
yeah,
I want
so
to
good.
show that, hey, I'm responsive to your interest. No still means no, honey
Yeah,
or
yeah,
sir.
yeah.
Whatever,
No
that
gender.
means
Yeah,
no means no. And when you say yes, what are you saying yes to? Because you might be down for one, but that
mhm,
doesn't mean the second,
yeah,
I don't, want two individuals, or I don't want to be, in this type of situation. So you have to articulate that.
that's good.
And if the person on the receiving end of you and this experience is not receptive to your no and respectful of your no, is that somebody you really want to entertain?
Yeah. That's so good. I love that. That kind of lends itself to the kind of the thought of the generation. We are in, this is what I say, we are in a hotels generation where there's this kind of shift. It's an interesting shift that has gone to, monogamous relationships, to non-monogamous relationships, to hooking up, to friends with benefits, and no strings attached sex.
Oh
What are
yeah.
your thoughts about that in regards to health?
Well, I think with that, again, is if you're going to act in any type of sexual act where there's going to be an exchange, whether of, bodily fluids of any type, regardless of gender or identity, that, you want to make sure that, hey, please get tested. If there are so many especially in more urban areas, of locations where you can have access to testing if you're going to be sexually active, that should be a part of just like going to the dentist,
Yeah.
you know? it or going to your doctor, it shouldn't be just this one time deal that it's very scary. If you're going to have multiple partners, again, you have to go in with the notion is that I'm protecting myself, and so using proper protection, whether it's condoms or dental dam, of any sorts, being able to use that. So get tested,
How do you
test.
bridge that conversation though? Like you just meet someone, it's very unsexy. Like this conversation that you're saying that we need to have is very unsexy, and I think people run away from it because it's so unsexy.
I don't think it has to be unsexy. I think that it can be just as open of a conversation as anything else. If you're going to talk about sex and it's a part of your life, it's a part of our human experience. I want to know if my partner is with someone else at this time so that I can protect myself if I'm going to engage in this. So I think, yeah, maybe not asking on the first date
When do
unless
you
it's going
ask?
to
Like, so when would
unless it's
someone
going to
ask
lead to
that?
that.
Yeah.
I
When
guess
when do you ask?
I think that if it's someone that you are wanting to definitely have sex with on a consistent basis, regardless if it's multiple partners, if you're going to be engaging with this person and having more intimacy, I'm getting to know you, we are talking, we're having conversations, we're having communication about and around sex. That's the time to start asking those conversations. If this is at a Starbucks, it's a meet and greet, I'm not going to be asking you about your sexual partners because maybe this is not the time. I don't know if I like you. I don't even know if I like this coffee,
Right. Right.
But just saying, like, hey, if I'm going to be wanting to spend more time with you and share in this type of intimacy, then yeah, let's have the conversation and just flat out saying, hey, do you have multiple partners at this time? And if you do, I just want to be aware of that so that we can be protected in the sex. Again, take ownership of it.
Take
Where
ownership.
take ownership and not expect your male counterpart or your female counterpart to do that. Is
Yeah.
take ownership of your health and your actions as you bring forth. And if you do are in a situation where your health is impacted and you are with an STI or you are HIV positive, again, there is so many resources out there. There's PrEP that you can be taking prior to you having these experiences with individuals.
Mhm.
Again, seek the guidance and support that you need for your own health to ensure that you are healthy, because sometimes, people even fear having sex because you're like, hey, I'm winded. I got a little extra, pushing for the cushion, a little
Mhm.
extra couple pounds on me.
Mhm.
So it doesn't have to be where it's an STI per se, but, hey, maybe I'm not comfortable with my breasts are starting to sag, or I've lost weight. I just had a baby and I'm reclaiming,
Mhm.
my body in some form, or I've had, surgery of some type. So again, take care of you and ensure that you are being your best self, just
Mhm.
like, going to get your hair done.
Mhm.
That should be a part of your
Yeah.
regular routines.
Yeah. How do you even that's an interesting topic. We started talking about these bellas, right?
Hmm.
And the different shapes and the sizes and the body image and all that things. What if you do have, as women in our developmental stages, we change with pregnancy and everything that you name. How do you talk about those types? How do you bring up those conversations when you yourself feel really uncomfortable about it?
Well, I think if you're feeling uncomfortable about yourself and your well-being, I would first start to just really say, what are the things that make me feel uncomfortable?
Hmm.
And if that is that, hey, I am having to deal with maybe some deeper issues that might be more trauma related, or I've gone through this experience and I haven't really dealt with that experience, that's first. Because your
Okay.
feelings are going to come and go. They're like
Yeah.
waves, right? Feelings come and go. So, really just say, what is it that's making me feel uncomfortable?
Hmm.
And then start addressing that.
Yeah.
Because the mountain of it can be much bigger than what I am ready to tackle, and it looks too big that I don't want to even start.
Hmm.
So, just really starting to say, hey, what are the things that in my body that I feel within me that's starting to show up in other areas of life. Because I promise you, and I know this from experience, even as I've been a professional organizing coach for over 18 years, that I can tell a lot of times what's going on in a person's life by their environment. So
Mm,
checking your environment, as my lifestyle and how I currently am conducive to these environments because they're showing up in other areas.
that's good. That's good. I love that. I kind of think that sometimes when we're thinking about sexuality, our own sexuality, and you speaking a lot about owning it. I think a part of owning it is kind of going beyond the surface and thinking about what are my values.
Mhm.
How does someone begin to even explore what their personal values are outside of what they've been told by mom and them, the church,
Mhm.
the community? What give some kind of guidelines about how do you begin to create your own personal boundaries and attitudes towards sexuality, even for like, and this is for every age group, I think.
Mhm. I think just as you were stating earlier, is being able to start having healthy connections and saying, okay, well, what does a healthy connection look like? I've never really seen a healthy connection. Maybe I didn't see it in my early years or I haven't seen it in my own personal life. But I think really having kind of that communication of what does a healthy connection look like? Um, and seeking that, whether it's the support group, from a support group, not necessarily saying not from your peers. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, hey, if you've only been around people that sound like you, talk like you, walk like you, is that always sometimes the healthiest thing? So seeking those things outside of yourself to say, what does that look like? What is important to me? What is vulnerable? What do I feel vulnerable or where can I feel
Mhm.
vulnerable? And I can be my true self.
Yeah,
Where can I express myself? Where do I feel like I can just be expressive and be creative or be, what does that
yeah,
look like? So
yeah,
I think asking those questions, and I'm always going to take it back to seeking professional support.
yeah.
And if you don't know, if you are someone that, hey, my faith is important to you, my spirituality is important to me, start there and say, okay, what are the connections that I have in my life, or where can I try to go seek these things? And just start there. Take baby steps with it. It doesn't have to be an all at once type of type deal,
Mhm.
but just taking baby steps so that you can start connecting your body, your emotions as you're changing and recognizing, oh, this changes for me and it feels uncomfortable. It's scary.
Mhm.
I don't know if I can do these things. All those things are very normal.
Yeah,
So I think when you seek those connections, we start to normalize, oh, okay, this is what my values start to be or shape. My
yeah.
values are really shaped in.
I love that. I love that. And I love that you're kind of highlighting the connection between your body because I do believe that we are instinctive beings, right? We have this intuition that helps us to kind of navigate the world. And even as you're trying to clarify what your personal values are, you can connect with your body. And your
Mhm.
body will tell you, God, this doesn't feel good. When this person did this to me, it didn't feel good. When I try to make myself not do this, it doesn't feel good. So connecting to your body is a way of clarifying what your values are as well, don't you think?
Oh yeah, very much so. Like if you feel your heart beating fast and you start to get sweaty palms or you start feeling your stomach start to get butterflies or starting to bubble the opposite way, like that's something to recognize. Your breathing intensifies when I'm in this situation and it doesn't feel comfortable to me. What are those things that make you feel calm?
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes your body can be so much in this kind of hyperdrive of survival because
Mhm.
it's doing what it needs to do to survive that you don't recognize. When I'm not in that situation, how do I feel? When I'm
Yeah.
in this situation, and that could just be even when I'm in the presence of this person or this group of people or this type of environment, how does that make me feel? When you start to recognize those things within, I start breathing a little heavy, I get a headache, my stomach turns,
Mhm.
paying attention to your body,
Mhm.
you can start to see the separation of, okay, this feels different for me now. So, yeah.
What if, I think that when we talk about sexuality, it takes a lot of courage to kind of own your
Mm,
sexuality and
mm,
own your values, right? Especially if you experience like a conflict between the way that you were raised and what your new beliefs are.
mm,
How do you
mm,
reconcile that? Is
mm,
it just about
mm.
just accepting it, or is there more to it than that?
Oh, it's more to it. There's always more to it, Tasha. I think that definitely with individuals, there's so much information, first off, just out there. We have social media, we have the internet, and there's vast amounts of information. And sometimes you can be thrown this information from left and right. You don't know what's factual, what's true, and what's false. Um, so I think, taking the time to kind of start to cipher through this, whether it's, hey, I'm gonna do a detox on social media and not be on this, or, I'm not gonna get on IG. I hope you're watching this, but
Yes,
I'm not gonna get on IG as much, or I'm not gonna get on or connect. I'm not gonna connect in this way as much.
that's
I'm
good.
gonna take my eyes off of this for a moment or for a couple days or whatever. That's where you start to really kind of see that. And
Yeah,
so then it starts to then you can start to then ask questions of, where do I get my information from? And is the information that I'm getting do I know this to be true?
yeah.
Right? Like,
Does it
is
resonate
there
with you?
right? Does it
Yeah. It's
resonate with
meaning
me?
if no one ever told me this was
Right,
wrong, would I
right,
believe that it's wrong
right.
based on the information that I've taken in, based on my perception of it, my experiences, my personal values? If no one were to tell you that it was wrong, what do you
You,
think?
yeah. What do you think? And then also challenging that, even challenging your own thoughts of, okay, I don't think that it's wrong. But then when you start to kind of start pulling apart, and deciphering through the muck of information is, okay, what's true? What's a fact? I know it to be a fact versus this is fictional and this is not true because our minds, as beautiful as they are, they will play tricks on us to believe all things are facts.
I'm
And it's
telling you.
not. It's not always the case. So even when we think about, healthy sex, what is a fact for me? Well, a fact is that you can, if you're having unprotected sex, you can increase your chances of an STI. That's a fact.
It's a fact.
That's a fact. So then, if I'm going to participate in this, what is it that I need to do? Okay, I need to have condoms. I need to get regular checkups. I need to disclose my sexual status with my partners so that they can make decisions for themselves. That's consent.
Yeah,
That's a part of consent is saying, hey, I'm going to make this choice for me. And I don't feel like I was untold this. Had I known information, would this still be true? So
yeah.
yeah, just bringing those connections together. And sometimes you got to pull them apart.
Mhm,
A lot of times you have to pull them apart to bring them back
mhm.
together, and then you can start to move in a more healthier way.
That's good. I love that. So we talked about trauma, thought
Hmm.
systems. We talked about values. We talked about just protecting yourself. We talked about consent. I want to kind of get into, um, let's say we're in a healthy sexual
Mm,
relationship, right?
mm,
Sometimes, even if we're in a healthy sexual relationship, sometimes things happen that prevent us from having healthy sex, expressing sexuality in a healthy way. What are some of those things that kind of hinder us that come into our experiences, and how do we handle it physically, physical
ooh,
things?
ooh, that's good. First off, is let's talk about expectations.
Yeah.
So when you're even in a healthy sexual experience, you feel safe, you feel comfortable, you feel like you can be vulnerable and have intimacy with someone,
Mhm.
that the expectations that we've placed there, not having open communication, so our communication, that goes back to language. If it's not there and it's not present with your partner or partners, then that can definitely break down what can then be the foundation of healthy sex. So communication is going to always be key, and communication is not just what we say, but what we hear. So
Yeah.
it's listening. Hearing and listening are very different. So really listening to your partner or partners, or if you're in a solo, listening to yourself, listening to what's around you. What are you taking in? to be healthy for you. So having communication, open communication, the expectations. Do I have an expectation that my partner will do X, Y, and Z? Well, if you ain't tell them or tell her, how do you expect them to know?
Yeah.
If you don't show people, how do you expect them to know? So again, really kind of saying, what are my expectations? What are my boundaries?
Yeah.
So
That's good.
boundaries, of doing things because, hey, I think this is going to please my partner, even though this is not something that I want to participate or I believe in, or I don't feel comfortable with at this time. Maybe I'm just not comfortable with it yet. I'm not in that space. So, have you expressed what those boundaries look like for you? Also, too, being able to express yourself and feeling comfortable expressing yourself. That, you know what, hey, I'm a anything goes kind of person. Are you expressing that? And are you
Hmm.
doing it in a way that feels comfortable for you, but also feels comfortable for others? And you're not going to always please others.
Yeah.
There'll be times when you're in a healthy sexual experience, whether if you're partnered, where, hey, I like this, but maybe now's not a good time, especially those that might be postpartum, or, if you're in a different phase of life, for someone that's going through their mid 40s and 50s, perimenopause and menopause, if you're going through some type of chronic chronic health disorder at this time, maybe now is not the time. So, what are the other areas that we can be sexual and sensual? It doesn't always mean that there's penetration, but can we be more intimate where, hey, I like how you touch me. I like how it feels. I like being able to do other activities, that we eat good together,
Yeah.
and that brings enjoyment to us. So, what are those other areas where we can still connect and I can still connect within my body? But then also, too, again, that open communication that I'm having with my partner or with myself. Because again, if you're not having communication with yourself of saying, you know what, I'm so closed up, or I work so much that I'm not experiencing life
Hmm.
because I'm working too much, or I'm doing things that are preventing me from having more sensual experiences, then that can definitely hinder you.
Yeah. That's good. I love that. Sometimes two things. Sometimes we get into relationships with, you talked about how, what if I'm in a phase of life and maybe I don't want to have sex, or maybe that person's sex drive is hypersexual. How do I know when we need to part because we're incompatible, or when we need to work through this and do as you said and kind of use other methods of getting my sexuality needs met?
Again, communication. I
Communication.
can't stress it enough, is that you've got to communicate. You've got to communicate your wants and your needs.
Yeah.
And you've got to also not communicating this with the other person, but with yourself. If
Yeah.
you're not adhering to your own boundaries, how do you expect anyone else? Again, we've come back to now
Yeah.
expectations. I can't expect for you to to abide by my boundaries if I don't do
That's
that.
good.
I can't expect for someone else to know what I need or what I want in this moment if I don't express that. And even for those that might, hey, my libido is still strong and I'm feeling very active and healthy, and I want to have more sex and I want to connect with you in this way. What are other ways that we can be able to do that? Now, if you feel like you have to part ways, again, communication. If it's
Okay.
only about sex, then hey, that's some other communication that you might want to have. Why is it only about that?
Mm, that's good. I love that because this comes into counseling so often in
Hmm.
regards to, for some one partner, it is about the sex. Like every time I'm asking you to have sex, you don't want to have sex with me, and this is a problem at this point.
And is it
So,
because I don't want to physically have sex, or I don't want to connect with you? So I
mm,
think it's really about looking at it as, I need that, because a lot of times, and oftentimes, but not always, males and females will feel like, hey, you're not having sex with me, but what they're really saying is, I need to connect with you. And this is how I feel most connected.
mhm,
So again, it's having the conversation. Okay, I understand you're not feeling yourself because whatever might be going on with the individual. How can I connect with you? I tell my clients all the time is not how can I help you, but how can I support you? So I think, again, reframing our words of what can I do to support you?
Mhm.
And then taking that off and allowing the individual to be able to support us. So
Good.
again, saying, hey, okay, you know what? We've taken sex off the table. We like to eat out. We like to go dancing. We like to go to sporting events, do things that are more fun. I'm connected to
Yeah.
you. So
Yeah.
that if and when the time comes that you do want to be more physical, that physical intimacy, now you're not in this space of trying to kind of figure it out because I'm connected to you.
That's good. I love that. I love because what I hear you saying is that even though we think that healthy sexuality is just the physical act, it's not. There's so much deeper than that. Like there are people that come, like couples that I work with that come in for counseling around the sexuality piece when we start doing the work and the sex is used as a weapon in the
Mhm.
relationship. And so then that means that it kind of gives us space to kind of have like real honest conversations
Yeah,
about
take it
you
off
made
the
me
table.
right. And but you made me upset and I'm using sex. You made me upset and I'm using sex against you because I haven't said what I really want to say.
Hmm.
And so though it is the physical act, it's so much deeper than just the
Oh yeah.
physical act.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe it's, hey, I take in, we like nice massages together. So I say, take it
Mhm.
off the table.
Yeah.
When you take the actual physical act of sex off the table, then you're left with, okay, this space of what else is in that space? Do we have a strong connection where we can communicate and I can tell you what my wants and needs are? I feel vulnerable if I tell you my wants and needs. Can I feel vulnerable in those
Mhm.
spaces? And then how else can I express this
Mhm.
and still be able to honor my boundaries and I also be able to honor those desires that I have as well?
Mhm.
Because again, maybe I'm not feeling desirable and I
Yeah.
need to be able to learn how to feel desirable in this space.
Yeah.
Because what worked for me, again, what worked for me at one point in time where things were great, they just don't fit right now. And that's okay. And so
Mhm.
I think being able to have, again, open communication. I need to be able to say some things to you, and they're going to maybe feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So it's not sometimes the words that I'm saying, but it's how I might feel in this moment and being able to say, okay, you know what? Huh, what can I do to support you in this? Instead of assuming that we understand what somebody needs or that they want or, and just assuming that for ourselves is okay, well, what else do I need in my own life to feel connected?
Yeah, it's so, so good. I love that. And we're kind of coming to the end of our time, and I hate it because I can really be here
Yeah,
all day.
yeah.
I wanted to just touch on, like, especially women that are mid 40s, 50s,
Yes.
60s, going through perimenopause, menopause, and our bodies changes to sex developmentally.
Mm-hmm.
What do we
Hmm.
do about it? Like, what do we do about it? Things change for men
Well,
and women.
for men and women. So
Yeah.
again, I say first, of course, always I've stressed it enough is seek the health guidance that you need. Make sure that there are no other underlying issues with it. So that way, it might be a medication that you're currently taking that could be affecting your sex drive or
Mhm.
affecting those things. Make sure that there's nothing else that's there that can hinder you further. So that way, you know what? Hey, I'm feeling more fatigued. It could be, different types of health conditions could also do that. So make sure you're getting the proper health support that you're needing. And then in that time, again, seek out support. So whether you have a counselor, a sex therapist, even a coach,
Mhm.
sometimes a coach, again, get someone that's trained, I say trained in
Mhm.
sex therapy, and sexual health. Get someone that's trained in those areas because they've taken extra steps to really support you, but get someone that is trained that can really help guide you through that. And then again, begin to just do the work that you need to do. It's a lot of inner work, and sometimes that inner work is very uncomfortable, and we
Mhm.
don't always want to experience that because it feels so real, so raw. Sometimes especially when there's trauma involved, it feels like you're still within it. But I think that once you start to again allow yourself to have a reframed mindset, a new perspective, okay, if, like you said earlier, if no one else told me this, is this really all there is?
Mhm.
And again, start seeking that. And you have to continuously do it because it's not, again, a one and done. I've gone through therapy as one that's, definitely becoming a therapist. It's a part of the process. Um, but continuously at different points of my life, you need therapy or you
Mhm.
need to be able to kind of talk to someone because, life changes and it ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
So again, seek support that you need and then seek out the help. That's primary. And make sure that they're working together. You
Mhm.
want to see guidance where your professionals, your team, think of them as your team, your own.
Mhm.
I have my own health and beauty team. It's
That's
not
so
just my
good.
stylist for my hair and, for me to go do the spa work, but it's my therapist, it's my doctors, it's my dentist. They all talk together. Make sure that they are communicating because, again, they're there to support you.
Yeah. I love that. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. We have about a few minutes left. I want to just give you the floor. Are there things that you feel like need to be said that maybe I didn't ask? This is your wrap it up, put it in a bow, in a box, and present it to us.
Oh, well, I say that, when we talk about sex and we've been talking healthy sexuality, really, again, is what does that look like for me now? Not 10 years ago, not before, or if you're new into your sexuality or that changes,
Mhm.
what does it mean to me now?
Yeah.
What does it mean for me to be vulnerable, to be expressive and uniquely me, and show up in those spaces? And
Mhm.
even when
Without
it's
judgment,
without
without with
judgment.
without holding judgment towards yourself
Yeah.
and even towards your partner.
Yeah, or not.
Yeah.
Even if you are in the state of singleness, whether chosen or unchosen, if
Mhm.
you are even in that state, is just saying, hey, I need to start having more healthier talks about sex. And
Yeah.
even though it might feel very scary at first, once you start doing that for yourself and really look at that, you can definitely have a beautiful and bountiful sex life, soloed, partnered, multiple partners. You can have that for yourself and really define what that looks like for you and not have to feel like you have to live up to any expectations
For standards that are not your own,
that
that
are
you didn't
not
agree.
yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
You
Nikki,
are
for being
welcome.
available
Thank
for this
you.
conversation. Again, I'm still a little bit nervous about the conversation, but you did a great job with just kind of it's just like normalizing like healthy
Normalizing it.
sexuality. It's just as healthy as you eating,
Or
you drinking
breathing. It
water,
is.
breathing, sleeping. It is normal and
Mhm.
healthy. And I love that we're getting into the space where we're actually opening up conversations about it and not feeling like we have to be stigmatized and be behind a rock somewhere when it's something that's a part of our daily
Mhm.
life. So thank you so much for having this conversation. Where do we find you? Where do we find you?
Well, you can definitely find me on IG. I am with Wax Kitchen Candles. And again, that is artisan candles. So that's just the line of products that I do. The belladonnas, yes, and the candles. But then also to Optimal Organizers, that's another line. That's the professional coaching. And I'll be out very soon with the sex therapy and everything. So just keep an eye out for that is coming, and I'll be doing different talks and things. So as well, one talk that I actually have coming up is I'm a coach, one of the coaches of the Ultimate Mind Body Transformation. It's a 7-week container where you are surrounded by the fullness of coaching, nutrition, exercise, mental health, organization, everything for those that are really saying, hey, I want to take more control of my weight and my nutrition. So, not just looking at it for weight loss, but again, it's really a mind, body, and soul transformation. So, I will be posting that and sending that as well
Yeah,
to
yeah.
you.
I
So
will
that
post
way,
it. I will post it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Are there other ways that people can work with you? And or, like
Yes. So,
meaning what types of services do you offer?
Sure. So I offer coaching services, definitely. And so the coaching, the counseling, again, that'll be coming very, very soon. And then the sex educator courses. And if you're looking for the creative outlet, so that's where you can kind of find me through Wax Kitchen. That's the creative side of what we do, because as adults, we don't sometimes play enough.
We need to
Um,
play.
we
We
need to
I'm
play,
heavy on
play, play,
the
play.
play part. Yeah, I'm heavy on the play. Yeah,
Heavy on the
yeah,
play. We don't play enough in our lives. So, those are some of the other services and supports that I do offer.
yeah. Awesome. Thank you again for coming and blessing us with your presence. It
Oh,
was
thank
definitely an
you.
amazing experience.
This has
Take a
been
deep breath
good.
in, deep breath out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's smile for the camera for the screenshot.
Mm.
All right. Thank you, Nikki. I'll talk to you
Thank
later.
you so much for having me. Love
My
and light.
pleasure. All right. Bye.